Hi, so it's been quite a long time since we came up with this session on important legal updates. So here I am again. There were a lot of requests that I was receiving on my email about these content. So I had to come. I hope all your preparations are going well. All of you are on it completely because we have hardly a month left, right, for our examination for ALET and for CLAT also. Let's start with the discussion on today's set of legal updates. Though we have a lot of interesting legal updates um, recently, so we'll be discussing all the important ones that we can expect in our upcoming exam, right? We can expect some passage in our upcoming exam, right? So let's start with the very first legal update that is about the abortion laws. And if you are reading newspaper regularly, you would be aware of it, that you would have come across a lot of article, lot of discussion, columns, editorials on abortion laws. It has been there continuously in our newspapers, which basically was mostly there was a debate that was going on whether an unmarried woman should be legally allowed to go for an abortion after a particular time period, right? So finally, Supreme Court got a case, and Supreme Court got a hold of the case, and Supreme Court decided, Supreme Court basically ruled, right, that every woman, irrespective of whether that woman is married or unmarried, she should be eligible. She should be allowed to go for all the safe and legal abortion up till 24 weeks of pregnancy, right? 24 weeks is what is the new say time period that have been decided. And the best part here was the more of the discussion that was done by our judges in the judgment was about whether unmarried women should also be given this right, to which it was clarified that uh, if we are distincting unmarried woman with a married woman, in this case, when both these women are actually going through the same kind of physical problems or same kind of mental problems or the same concerns, both of them have the same kind of concerns when it comes to the health and physicality. In such case, it should be given, the woman should be given the discretion, they should be given the right, they should be given the power to decide whether they want to go ahead with the pregnancy or not, right? So finally it was decided. And the main law, there's a legislation that rules the abortion laws, and that is Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, that is 1971, right? Now, according to the Supreme Court, as I just told you, that Supreme Court basically said that if we make any such distinction between the unmarried and married woman, in such case, it would amount to some sense of discrimination in that case, and at the end of the day, the health of a woman should be in hands of the particular person, right, and not in hands of the law to decide or to control. And hence, under Rule 3B of MTP Act, it was considered that it is unconstitutional, right, unconstitutional to deny an unmarried woman from going for an abortion. Right. Previously, it was 20 weeks. Now it has been increased to 24 weeks. Right. So this was about abortion laws. However, in this, you may get a passage. There are chances that you may get a passage on it with regard to MTP Act, with regard to the Constitution, with regard to these acts, and there can be certain they can play with certain facts. Basically, they can twist certain facts and they can ask you questions on this. Next is, this is more towards it, this looks like it is more towards legal knowledge, but it is not just legal GK. There can be a question on legal reasoning also in this, because whenever if you remember, in one of our previous sessions we discussed that if there is any constitutional appointment that is taking place, of course we need to know who is getting appointed, but the main part is we have to look at the constitutional background of that appointment. Like, for example, there is a new appointment of Attorney General of our country, and that is Mr. R. Venkatramani. He was a senior advocate of Supreme Court, and now he has been appointed as the new Attorney General of India. Now, what is it that we need to learn from this case, from this news, right? What is it that would be relevant for our preparation? It would be the constitutional background of the Attorney General, right? So the very first thing is who appoints Mr. Venkataramani? It would be President. President would be the one who would be appointing Attorney General under Article 76 of Constitution. Second is, how do we decide what is the eligibility criteria of this person? How do we decide who has to be appointed? So the very first thing is that such person should be eligible to become a Supreme Court judge. Such person has to be eligible, should have the same kind of eligibility that a Supreme Court judge has, right? Other than that, an Attorney General holds the office as per the pleasure of the president. Means it will be the president who will be deciding how long you are going to serve the office, right? As long as the Attorney General is going as per the president's, I mean, it is not going against the vision of president or the country in such a way that president has to make an objection there, until unless president raises a question or makes a motion to remove the Attorney General. Until then, Attorney General can serve the office, right? Currently, Mr. Venkataramani has been appointed for 3 years. So his time period is going to be for 3 years for now, right? Now, next is, for every session, there would be some or other legal update on environment, right? Because as I told you, newspapers have been full of environment-related issues, be it GK or be it laws. In both the ways, there have been a lot of updates. There have been a lot of development that has happened in this year, in 2022, with regard to environment. And that's why I'm expecting at least one passage from environment this year. Anyways, there have been a new discussion that actually landed up in the Supreme Court, wherein the case was about the ex post facto of environment clearances. So what happens whenever there is any project that takes place? Okay. Whenever any project starts with regard to industry or for any industrial development, in such case, it has to take some clearances from the of the authorities for environment clearances, wherein authorities go through the documents, they do the background check and everything. Basically, entire due diligence is done, and accordingly, the authorities decide whether this particular project is fine for the environment or not, or is going to hamper the environment or not. If it is going to hamper the environment, in such case, certain instructions would be given to the person, right? And when the authority finds that, okay, there's no problem, it can, there is sustainable development that is there in this picture, in such case, such clearance is given, right? Now, Supreme Court recently have concluded, they have ruled out, they have said that these ex post facto means once the project has been started, environment clearances are considered to be accepted, right? So there was this case that came to the court. Now, what relevance does it have? It basically means that the Supreme Court is allowing the functioning of those industry. Yeah. So the operations of those industry, even though such industry, such such project has not received any green clearance, any environment clearance, and even though they have not disclosed what kind of environmental impacts they are going to have through that project, right? So that's what Supreme Court said. Supreme Court simply ruled that under Environment Protection Act of 1986, you have to know that this is the legislation that we follow. This act does not prohibit the grant of ex post facto environmental clearances. So basically, it does not mean that once a project has started, then the project cannot get the environment clearances. They can get it, right? So this was about this was a simple one. Moving on to the next one about the Election Commission. So Election Commission recently they have started. They have basically suggested that there has to be a limit on the cash donation. So what happens? All these political parties, these political leaders, right? All these candidates, election candidates, they have. They can get certain donation through cash from people, right? So now now the Election Commission is proposing that we should have some amendments in the RPA, means Representation of People Act 1951, wherein we should slash the cash donation. Means we should keep a limit of it, right? Why? Because so that we can keep the transaction or all these donation transparent first, and second, we can hold those candidate accountable when we find that there are more than a certain limit of donation that they are receiving, right? Now, here, talking about the Election Commission of India is a very, very important body for our country, one of the most important constitutional body that we have. And since it is a constitutional body, we have to read about it, right? So Election Commission is an constitutional body. It is constituted under Article 324 of the Constitution. Very, very important article for your exam perspective also. Under Part 15 of Constitution, it deals with Election Commission and their roles and their functions and the powers and all of that. Moving on to what is the range of the article that that talks about Election Commission? That would be Article 324 to Article 329, right? And what is the composition of Election Commission? So there would be 2 election commissioners, 1 chief election commissioners. All right. Now it is just the nomenclature that is such. Otherwise, when it comes to the powers, right? When it comes to the power, functioning, role, eligibility, tenure, everything is same for all 3 members of Election Commission. Be it election commissioner or chief election commissioner, all of them would be on the same stance when it comes to law. In the eyes of law, all of them remains the same. It's just that, if there are 2 people in some cases wherein a decision has to be taken, if one person says yes, other person says no, so there has to be a third person who should have some say there, so that we can have some majority there to decide at the end of the day as to what decision has to be finalized, right? So that's why we need to have one at least 1 senior member, and that is why we have 1 chief election commissioner there, right? Next is about the age of consent. So there was this case, Ram Bande Rama versus State of Karnataka, wherein it was a case on POSCO Act. So there was a case wherein the rape and kidnapping of a minor was taken up by the court, wherein the courts basically said that these criminal proceeding of rape and kidnapping, it has to be taken up under Indian Penal Code, right? It was taken under Indian Penal Code, and it was said that it has to be quashed. The Supreme Court, the High Court basically quashed it, outruled it basically. So here, that is not of importance. That matter is not of importance. The main important area here is POSCO, or POXO, whatever you call it. That is what is the important part here. Protection of children from sexual offenses. Now, recently, last year only, there was this case in Madras High Court, wherein Madras High Court simply said that, listen, the purpose of POSCO Act is to protect children from sexual offenses, right? And if there is a person who is adolescent and he or she, or basically he, somehow got into a relation with the minor girl, in such case POSCO Act does not have the provision or does not have the objective of punishing that adolescent in such case. Okay, in such case it has to go by some other way. POSCO Act has some other purpose, right? So basically POSCO Act was for the protection of children from the offenses of sexual assault, from pornography, from sexual harassment, all of that. And who are children here? According to POSCO Act, children basically refers to all those people who are below the age of 18 years of age, right? So 18 years old, below than that, if there's any person, such person would be called as a child, according to the POSCO Act, under the eyes of law, right? So that is what is important for our exams perspective. That's what just you need to know about POSCO. Just in case if you get any passage on POSCO, that you should not just get overwhelmed by seeing it, or by that, okay, I've not heard it, I'm not familiar with this word. You just need to be familiar of all these laws, all these developments that are happening, and you're good to go, right? It will save a lot of energy. It will help you in controlling your anxiety in the exam. Plus, it will help you save a lot of time, right? And help you in good comprehension. So that was it for today's session, guys. Thank you so much. Please, if you have any question with regard to any of these topics, or if you have any topic that you want me to cover, please comment it down. And I'll definitely try to help you out with that. Thank you so much, guys, and all the very best. Keep your Josh high as always. And later on, you may collapse on 18th December night, but you're not allowed to collapse before that, right?